Good evening. Today we're going to talk about the X-Men films and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think the X-Men films are more enjoyable and more entertaining. The X-Men movies have often come as second thought instead of an initial first one when talking in contemporary terms of comic book movies. There are great factors to consider, however, when considering the X-Men films to be superior to the MCU. The MCU reigns when it comes to the main popularity of comic book movies, and they're the definitive leading box office legion. The X-Men films, while also hailing from the Marvel Comics universe, are owned by Fox Studios and therefore separate from the MCU. The X-Men commenced the second coming of comic book movies with 2000's X-Men film. This sparked interest and a surging popularity for comic book movies. There was none too much prior to that. Films like Punisher, Daredevil, Electrica, they followed, along with the Hulk. That's not to be confused with the Incredible Hulk made in 2008, which is actually part of the MCU. The Hulk is actually by itself. It's not part of the MCU. Now, while the first X-Men did come after Blade, which is also a Marvel property, not a lot of people knew that Blade was part of the Marvel universe, and it was relatively unknown that he was a superhero or anti-hero, if you will. For the purposes of the explanation to casual fans of movies versus comic book fans, I'll briefly explain which films I'm talking about, and we'll get started. The X-Men universe will comprise of X-Men 1, 2, 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, Logan, X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, The Apocalypse, and yes, absolutely yes, I will consider Deadpool part of the X-Men universe for technicality reasons and for the fact that while breaking the fourth wall all day long, Deadpool consistently speaks of Fox's X-Men movies. He spends time in the mansion. He has 2 X-Men in his first film, and the sequel will include Cable. I would love to talk about Cable, but we don't have enough time for that. He's the kid of an X-Men and a clone, so we'll just move on from there. The MCU is comprised of Iron Man 1, 2, 3, Incredible Hulk, Thor 1, 2, 3, Captain America 1, 2, 3, which is Civil War, the Avengers 1 and 2, Guardian of the Galaxy movies, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Black Panther. And yes, Spider-Man is in the MCU now. It was difficult to come by at first, but Sony is a little more understanding than Fox. So I'm just going to leave that right there. To me, the X-Men as a team has been near and dear to my heart since 1992 series. The animated series came back way back out when, and my uncle actually bought me and my brother our first case of comic books, which was mainly comprised of vintage X-Men from the 90s. Titles such as The Executioner's Song was one of my favorites. And basically, when the first X-Men film first came out, my dad had brought us a pirated copy from Japan. He was in the Navy, and he came and brought it home, and we were ecstatic. While many people remain biased for the X-Men against any of the team, it's safe to say I still love the MCU, just not as my other mutant universe. I'll commence to my first reason. I've always identified with the freaks, so to speak. And I really see the X-Men as those type of outcasts, you know, the polar opposite of the cool kids. The Avengers would be more paralleled with the preppy popular kids. The X-Men would be more of the grungy type, a little bit grittier. This reflects in the film as well. The X-Men actually face real issues such as racism. You know, people are against mutants. For some reason, they're not against other superheroes if they become a superhero by accident. But with the X-Men, they're born that way, and they have a whole bunch of racism they gotta deal with, friends of humanity and whatnot. Actually, the main 2 people of the X-Men universe, Professor Xavier and Magneto, were actually modeled after Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They both had the same view about certain things, however, it was opposing on how they attacked it. Here you see just a regular Friends of Humanity, a senator saying, "Human, you dare call that thing a mutant?" It's just something that the X-Men had to deal with. And you don't see that in the MCU. The MCU doesn't deal with real-world issues that much. They face bad guys like any other superhero team. The realism Hits close to home though when reflecting real issues concerning real struggles. The X-Men point, realism. Another thing for the X-Men films, Wolverine. The character is a pillar in the mutant community and is by far the most popular X-Men for decades now. First bursting onto the scene back in the 70s with the Hulk movie, one of the Hulk first comics. His entire childhood is depicted on screen throughout the films, from when he accidentally killed his father as a kid to when he went to war and all the different wars. Basically, it showed him all his evolutions from joining that government team to Weapon X to finally joining with the X-Men. No other character in the MCU really explored depth and pain of that level, you know, from losing every single different woman that he ever loved in various shapes and forms to killing his dad, physical pain he endures when he receives the adamantium in his bones, the procedure itself. Him wanting to die and not being able to do so. You don't see anything like that in the MCU. His death in Logan was by far one of the most powerful scenes for me. It was heartbreaking. Saddest moments for me in cinema history. His ferocity, skills, ability to take it to the deadliest level if need be cannot be matched by anybody in MCU. X-Men point for the Berserker Rage Logan. Another point is the assortment concerning plots for the MCU and X-Men are very different. The culmination of everything MCU is coming up in Infinity War, and I am very excited about that. It releases later this month, but every single film has been leading up to this. They're all just pieces, to me, they're pieces to lead to this final film, the final phase of what Marvel's cinematic universe has been planning for a good while. For each X-Men film, they can actually stand on their own 2 feet. Like I already spoke about Logan. Logan can handle itself. It was more towards a grittier Western action movie. And then Days of Future Past was its own thing. And I really liked it because it tied the first 3 films to the prequels. And, you know, Wolverine wakes up at the very end and he sees everybody the way it should have been at the mansion. It's pretty good. Very strong point for X-Men. Deadpool. MCU don't have Deadpool. Wade Wilson was first introduced in Origins, and while it was highly blasphemous of the character in accordance with accurate comics, it was still entertaining. Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. We've heard that tone before. His ability to uncannily break the fourth wall over and over to make fun of everybody, Marvel and DC, is pure entertainment. Deadpool even makes references to X-Men's own Professor Xavier, played by 2 different actors from 2 different eras. His sequel will soon be amongst us, and I am very excited for it, and only a few people might not enjoy it. They might have lame taste, they might not. I don't know. Last but not least, we're going to have to go ahead and discuss the visually stunning scenes that X-Men films have that MCU just does not have. Quicksilver scenes are amazing. The Pentagon and the X-Mansion, you know. Another one would be Nightcrawler's attack on the White House. During Quicksilver's reign, they show the world slowed down while Quicksilver is having the time of his life, just taking out the bad guys, going full blast, and it basically depicts what happens in over a few minutes, you know, eventually, and then at the very end of the scene, it's going to show what happens in a few seconds, and it's pure comedy. When Nightcrawler hit up the White House in X2, it was off the wall. His assault wowed audiences the first time when it was shown. In real time, he single-handedly goes throughout the White House, conquers all areas of security. There's great cinematography and off-the-wall stunts that showcased his teleportation powers. It just left you satisfied. Really left you satisfied. The MCU cannot go without compliment because it's still a juggernaut in the comic book world. And the X-Men, to me, though, is, however, more enjoyable. The visually spectacular scenes in conjunction with world aspects is still king in my opinion. So, go X-Men. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.